Welcome to the Inside the Box podcast, brought to you by Black Box Investigations and Appen Media Group. Dive into local issues important to the North Atlanta community, from politics and education to business and crime. Hear the story behind the story that you won't hear, read, or see anywhere else.
Greetings and welcome to the Inside the Box podcast. I am your host, Hans Appen, and joining me in the studio today are our show's producer, AJ McNaughton.
How you doing, Hans?
We're doing good. And we've got our first guest on the inaugural podcast, Mayor Pro Tem, Donald Mitchell. Donald, how you doing?
Oh, it's great to be here inside the box.
Thank you for joining us. We are thrilled to have you on as our very first guest.
Thank you for having me.
If you can believe we are doing podcasts now.
I think it's a great thing for our city and state.
Well, again, thank you for being on here. I want to talk a little bit about politics, and not so much policy, but what's involved in politics, how you get involved, what goes into day-to-day as an elected official, some things like that. But first, I want to take you back in time.
All right.
It's 2010, the year before you were first elected to Alpharetta City Council.
Yes.
What are you up to?
I was very much involved in our downtown Alpharetta Business Association. And at the time, our downtown was pretty desolate. And so there wasn't a lot going on. There weren't a lot of business opportunities happening. And, and we were just taking note of this and like, what can we change as a city and what can we as citizens do to make this a better place to be and more inviting, not just to corporations, which are all around our downtown, but how can we invite small businesses, even mom and pops and restaurants and things like that into the downtown area? And I think there were a lot of citizens at that time that were really at a point where they were ready for something to happen. So that's kind of where I was doing my business, not really thinking about running for politics at all. But I was really getting to a point of where, we've got to make a difference. And the citizens, if we don't do it, who's going to do it? So
did somebody give you the idea to jump into politics, or what gave you that idea? What that was the next step for you?
Well, I had served in college on the student government and in both colleges and things like that. And so I knew how to make the change, but, I had suggested this to a local realtor at the time, and he said, "Oh, Donald, you'll never get elected." And, then that's all I needed
You showed
to hear. Sometimes being told no is the best thing you can hear.
All the motivation you need.
Exactly. And so I thought, why not me? Why not me? And I'm at an age where I can let go of some business things and just focus on doing running for office. And so I worked at trying to get a committee together of people that were like-minded, that agreed that something needed to be done. We didn't agree on everything, but we agreed on so much that it was like obvious we need to try and affect change down at City Hall.
So I'm sure that was one of the first things you did. Call up some friends, get advice, get them together, ask them to support you. What are some of the other things that go into running for a local office that maybe somebody who's thinking about it may not necessarily think of?
Well, I'll preface this with, I don't want it to discourage anybody, but, I really think that anyone can serve. I don't think you have to have a law degree or an engineering degree or a doctorate in any area. I think if you're involved and concerned and you care about your community and you want to make a difference and you see an area, like even now, we think we're covering all our bases and as council persons, but if you see an area that needs to be addressed and you're not actively involved trying to do that, to me, the best people to run for office are those who are already actively trying to make a difference and make a change. And that may be organizing a group. It may be teaching a big Sunday school class. It could be just involving yourself with civic groups and just trying to make a difference, raising money for charities. I think those people are the ones who will actually work once they are elected.
Sure.
And so I say that to say that I really feel like you have to clear your mind and picture yourself in office. You're committing in our local Alpharetta council, you're committing to, in the next 4 years, being at council at least 144 times. Mm-hmm. And that's quite a commitment on its own.
Sometimes until very late at night.
Exactly.
What's the latest you've been there in the time you've served?
I think it was like 1:30.
1:30
a.m. Yeah.
Do you remember what the case was?
No, I forgot. Past 12 o'clock, I don't remember anything. No, it was a big school choice. It was the moving of a school to a retail area, and so a lot of folks. Was that the
Amana Academy?
It was the Amana Academy, and the community was pretty polarized on that issue, and so that was probably the most contentious council meeting we've had, and it's like everything. Everything to me I look at cases and I think they're gray area. It's just varying degrees of gray. No matter what comes before us, it's not a right or wrong answer or black or white. It's never that easy. And I know that sometimes when people say, well, why didn't you vote on this? Or well, because these factors were affecting this and this factor came into play. And then our law states this. And so you have to it's like a juggling act of finding what area that you personally can live with and you think your constituents can live with. And sometimes if you leave and both crowds are equally unhappy, but they feel like you've been fair and just, I think you've reached a better conclusion.
So I'm sure you've seen your fair share of items before council that have a very divided opinion from the public.
Sure.
Talk to me a little bit about how you personally go about hearing both sides, understanding the viewpoints from both sides of your constituency, and then balancing that out before you make a vote.
Sure. I really have a philosophy that once you're elected, you're no longer put there by one particular group. You're representing the city at large. Mm-hmm. And so and not everybody feels that way because they come in representing a certain viewpoint, and I get that, but really you want to change your mindset into what's best for the city, not only now, but in the long run. What's going to be best for Alpharetta 120 years from now, because some of the changes you make and some of the decisions you make will affect your future in very substantial ways. I try to weigh out every email I get. I read them. I sometimes call up folks if I want to know more details. Most of the time they put the details in, or they'll put snippets of their concerns about this or that. Mm-hmm. And then, I get stopped in the grocery store. I get stopped here and there. And I'll go to community meetings where the subject's being talked about, especially controversial ones. We normally open that up to, especially if it's an item that's very controversial, we'll open it up to public meetings where the public can just come and speak to it, and we can explain what the process is or what the new program is, and have people give input.
What's the best way for a constituent to reach out to you?
Either email or call us directly. Okay. Emails are probably better because we're on the run a lot. And because we're attending, neighborhood association meetings, we're attending this meeting, we're attending civic group meetings, church meetings. We're all over the board at different times, and we're trying to juggle our own personal lives and our own businesses as well. So it's emails are good because we can read them in the middle of the night. Okay, which I'm known to do.
We'll throw your email in the show notes for anybody who wants to reach out to you.
Exactly. I've learned early on not to respond to emails in the middle of the night.
So you've now been popularly elected to Alpharetta City Council 3 times.
It's scary, isn't it?
3 times. What's changed since you were first elected in 2011 as far as serving goes? What surprised you as a councilman since 2011?
Boy, that's a tough one. The main thing that I think, one thing I guess I could answer that, and I wish were different.
Sure.
And I see this in my own life, so I get it. When folks don't understand the entire process or the entire situation, and you're given partial information from this group or a neighbor, or you're giving this information, and you don't understand all the circumstances surrounding that, then you come to quick judgment. And what's really disheartening, and I think it scares people away from running, is that, there's a lot of names called out. If you're an elected official, you're automatically in that group of vipers that and I wish that were different, because I think it keeps really good, smart, educated people from running, because they don't want to be thrown into the fray.
Mm-hmm.
And not everyone's like that by any means. But you get that a lot, and you have to have tough skin if you want to serve in office. You really do. You have to understand they're just upset about this, and even though they hurl whatever at you, it's not a personal attack for the most part.
Right.
Do
you think people, maybe not so much in Alpharetta specifically, but just generally speaking across the state and across the country, are more inclined, for whatever reason, to decide, why not me? Like you said, I'm going to run for something.
Well, that's interesting. Right now, I think our country is pretty polarized as far as politics and the way people view government. And that affects us on a local level as well. Even though I think there's much more control on the local level, I think there's more accountability here. I still think that bleeds over into how people view government. And so I think that kind of scare some people away, but at the same time, it should encourage others to run, because this time and this age, we've never needed more people from all facets of life, from all skin colors, both sexes, running for government, because I really feel like it's the council and boards should represent the people in the community and be a cross section.
So one more question along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
You have somebody thinking about running for a city council seat or a county commission seat.
Yeah.
They can't make their mind up. What advice would you give to them to help them decide one way or another?
I'd say ask your spouse, ask your friends how they think you would be because your friends know you pretty well, how you would be as far as interacting with the community, if you have a thick skin, if you can take it, if you can articulate your thoughts and ideas into action, and if you're willing to work hard. If you're not willing to work hard and devote the time, not only to being at all the meetings or as many as you can, but doing the homework and doing the added civic groups and trying to organize groups in your community, then probably wait until you're able to do that. Mm-hmm. But if you really have a passion and you're driven and you have a strong desire to change your community or to add to it, and it doesn't mean you have to knock the existing council or the existing community, but if you really feel like you can provide something, then go for it. And get out and talk to as many neighbors in as many communities as you can. Okay. And that to me is the best way and to get to know people, but also it's a great barometer on what the community is feeling at the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. Let's talk a little bit about Alpharetta. Okay. Again, a lot's changed in 7 years since you were first elected. Talk to me a little bit about some of those changes, maybe also what you're most proud of, having been a part of that change.
Well, I'm really thrilled on so many facets. I think when I got elected, Mayor Belle was also elected. I know he was elected at the same time. And we had 7 people on council. We could not have been from more different facets in our lives and in our careers. And yet that group, that initial group from 6 years ago, we clicked and we came to agreements. Even though we didn't start off in agreement, we would come to agreements, and I think we all had a real strong desire to affect change and to see things happen in Alpharetta and to get the economy going. We were coming out of the recession, so the previous council had to deal with all the factors of the recession, and but even that council had bought property to start city center, and so you always kind of build off of the councils before you, and so we were at a great place to jump off and really take a risk and invest in city center, invest in the city hall and the parking and the park. And that to me was the real catalyst for the change we've seen in downtown. Because when I think corporations saw that we were willing to invest ourselves in the city, then we were doing something that no other city had done quite the same way we had done it. Mm-hmm. It was like Alpharetta was a donut, if you will, and the hole was downtown, so nothing was happening in the hole. And so we knew that needed to be filled. And so it's been remarkable to see the changes. It's been frightening to some and exciting to others.
It's been a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of, yeah, it really has. And I think some people are ready to slow down and take a look at things. And I think it is a time to reflect on where we are. I think I'm most proud of the fact that we were able to put together an economic development team for the city that had never been done before in a concentrated effort. We were able to attract large corporations like Avalon. We were able to get that huge hole in our city filled. We were able to connect it with our downtown. But to me, the real crowning jewel, and it's different for everyone, we were able to marry economic development with historic preservation, and also at the same time work on cultural affairs and have art added to the city and have a consciousness about art and a consciousness about preserving our past. To me, I think when it's all said and done, I'll be happy that we finally have a museum that honors our city's past.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that, because I know you are very passionate about the arts here in Alpharetta, about historical preservation, the historical society. What have we been able to accomplish towards those efforts, and what do we have left to do?
Well, there's a lot. There's a lot left, but I'm real proud of what we've been able to do. We've been able to identify at least 60 homes and properties within the city that have historic value. We've been able to establish a historic preservation commission, as well as an ordinance that if someone were to purchase their home, they cannot immediately tear it down before they could get a permit that day and tear it down that afternoon. And we saw that happening from time to time. Mm-hmm. And now they have to go through a public process and petition the Historic Preservation Commission. The community would be alerted that this is going on and this property is in jeopardy. And then they would have to justify it by what are they going to build on that property, or how are they going to change that property for the better. And so I'm real proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that we've coupled development with historic preservation. So the only way we could finally figure out and our model is not copied anywhere else that I know, because we were pressured with economic development at a scale that no other city in the state, except for Savannah maybe, was experiencing. And so it was like, how can we get the developers to preserve these homes if they want to build on that property? And we did it by density credits, but also by establishing the ordinance, which would require that the homes and properties being built around that historic property be of historic character. And so they had to build in a design phase the same as when the city was founded. So.
And the Arts Center is still in the works. The Alpha Loop is in the works. There's still, the sculptures are going up. We've got 2 downtown now?
We'll soon have 3. Yes.
3? Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot still to be done, but a lot accomplished for sure.
Yeah.
You are now in your second full term.
Second full term, correct.
As a council member. So you'll have one more full term.
Right.
So you've got essentially 8 years left, a little under 8 years.
Possibly, yes.
What do you want to make sure that you personally accomplish between now and the end of those 8 years?
I feel good about what I'm doing. I feel good about the progress we've made. If I could leave with one thing, when my days are done in public service, I would like to see that we have a heritage park that encompasses the old farmhouse site, which is off of Old Milton on the other side of the creek of Avalon, where Avalon is across 400. And it was the original site of where settlers got by Big Creek, and they would exchange goods with the Indians and things like that, and also with the gold rush. Some of that was going through there, but that was the very beginning of Alpharetta, and it was called Farmhouse. Wow. And you'll be able to see all that in the museum when it opens. But from there, they moved up to where the old city hall was, where City Center is now, because there was available wells right there. Okay. And so they moved up to a higher land and was able to tap into that, and the rest is history from there. But I'd like to see a heritage park made out of that area.
Okay. Yeah, no, that sounds neat.
Yeah. Connect it with the Greenway, and it would be really nice.
Okay. I want to switch gears on you here just a little bit and talk about one of the black box projects we worked on in 2017.
Okay.
We called it Journalism Under Attack, the Georgia edition. Essentially what we did is we looked at different cases in the state of Georgia where journalism or journalists are being impeded in their job in some way, shape, or form. And it was neat to be able to interview different journalists, publishers, a lot of citizen journalists, and really hear their story and try and give a really human experience to our readers with all that. I want to ask you about Alpharetta specifically. Where do you see City Hall being transparent and open to its citizens? What efforts are they actively doing to make sure that they're open to not just journalists, but its citizens?
Sure. Well, we obviously like state requirements that every meeting be open and to the public, with exception for executive sessions, which only have to do with property and litigation and things like that, personnel. Those 3 items. But beyond that, anyone can file for an open records request. We have the online, we're trying to make more of our meetings available online so people can hear those outright. To me, I've always felt this. I heard it wasn't one of my therapists, but I heard a therapist say one time, we'll just code it like that. You're only as sick as you are secret. And the more secrets you keep, the more, the sicker you are. And so I want a healthy city. I want a city that's open. If there's something that you have to hide, you really shouldn't be doing it. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know of anything. I mean, our finance department, we win awards every year and get recognized for some of the best financial reporting around. And so that to me indicates that we're totally transparent as far as that. And any ways that people think we can be more open and transparent, I would love to hear them, because I think everyone's on board with trying to be. I know that our city administrators are, when the press calls them from Atlanta, the news or whatever, whether it's a appealing story or not, we totally work with them in any way they need to cover whatever story, So.
Well, I will ask you about one specifically. Okay. That was an issue more so in City Milton recently.
Okay.
And in Forsyth County fairly recently. Texting during meetings. What's your take on that between council members or from council members to somebody in the audience or somebody at home? Should it be allowed?
I think if you're texting someone, I do that occasionally. I'll text someone to ask them for information, or for clarity on something. If I don't want to stop the meeting and it had just been stated, well, what was said there, something like that. I don't have a problem with that. All of our text communications are open records, so it's not like you can't access those if you need to. So as long as it's pertaining to the job and what's at hand, I don't see any real problem with that. As long as you're not like constantly texting the entire meeting, that would be annoying. But,
right. Okay.
Yeah.
This has been good conversation, and I want to end the show with a little rapid fire game.
Okay.
So I got some word association for you. So it doesn't have to be one word response, but I would like for it to be spontaneous.
Okay.
So as quick as you can, a couple words. We'll do a little rapid fire. First is the arts.
Love it. Love it. Love the direction we're going in. Want to do more. I think more people. Oh, I can't elaborate. Right.
We're gonna fire
responded.
through these.
Okay. Go ahead.
Number 2, MARTA.
MARTA. All right. I think we have a divided community still on MARTA, whether or not we want rapid rail. To me, the best solution is to have a rapid bus system that will act as a feeder for different communities coming into the city, and that would go to the MARTA station instead of trying to park all these cars in our city and all the additional traffic in our city.
We got to work on your rapid fire response.
Yeah.
All right, next one, social media.
Social media, it's a great way to get the message out, and love it.
David Belial.
I think David has, he's been the man for our time, and has done a lot of great things. And I think he's very visionary.
Mixed use development.
Mixed use development has allowed us to put apartments within that, where they're protected over time. And it's not only what we have done, it's what a lot of people want to live in. They want to live where they can eat and play.
Okay, last one. Mayor Donald Mitchell.
I've heard that request. Oh, that's not a rapid fire question.
Yes or no?
Maybe.
So
future.
And part of the reason I bring that up is because we've actually got a funky election situation coming up here in Alpharetta, where our current mayor, David Belial,
right,
has announced to run for Secretary of State, and he'll need to resign his seat as mayor to run for that position. We've already had 2 folks on Alpharetta City's council publicly say that they plan to then run for the Alpharetta mayor seat. So
That's
they
correct.
will also have to resign. So we've got a mayor pro tem, Donald Mitchell, who will be mayor in a very short period of time here.
Yes. It's a challenging time for the city. David will probably step down at the end of February, and then soon after we will have council elections. The charter states around 90 days, and so that'll leave the council with 4 acting council members. And my personal goals are to keep the ship sailing straight forward, to continue the path that we're on, and also to really try and stay out of any of the politics and the warfare possible
As best
political.
you can, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, I personally plan on staying out of any of the races.
Sure.
We need stability at City Hall, and we will have that. And our staff needs a stable environment to continue the work that's at hand, because the work will not stop. It's only going to be loaded even more, because we'll have fewer people to work the loads. But that'll get done, and it'll be a stable environment, and we will get through until the city decides who their next mayor is, and then we can proceed from there.
I think that's a good note to end it on.
Thank you.
Again, I want to thank you for being on our first show. Hope you'll come join us again soon. And best of luck as soon to be, if only for 90 days, Mayor Donald Mitchell.
This has been the Inside the Box podcast, North Atlanta's #1 local podcast. For bonus exclusive content, visit blackboxdocs.com. That's blackboxdocs.com. We welcome your feedback. Email us at pod@blackboxdocs.com.